What the fuck? Okay, I think we're live.
Welcome to Hops News. We got a great show for you
I
tonight.
think we're live. Nothing. I don't know why every time we do this, like something doesn't work on my end. Um, yeah. Why aren't you working? Streaming? It says we were streaming.
I
Give
just
me.
keep singing like Jay in my head. The motherfucker.
What the
I
hell?
see
It
us
was
on
just.
YouTube.
What are we doing? Working, and then it went away.
Was it?
What the fuck? Okay, I think we're live. I'm just hearing myself back now.
Me too. Welcome to Hops News. We got a great show for you
I
tonight.
think we're live.
Oh my
Nothing.
God, I'm
I
really
don't know
loud.
why
I don't know
every
what
time we
to
do
do.
this, like something doesn't work on my end.
Nothing's working.
Yeah. Why aren't you working? Streaming? It says we were streaming.
I think we are streaming, but then for a second, all I could hear was what we had just recorded. And I like scared myself because my voice came into my head so loud. I think
So
we're good now.
okay.
All right. So, yeah, welcome to Hops News. We're going to be talking about Anchor Brewing tonight. So, I'm actually
Maybe.
really excited. We're going to go into some history of Anchor Brewing, some of the recent and sad news about Anchor Brewing, and some of the stories that have recently come out that are giving us hope about the 127-year-old brewery. We got Micah in the YouTube that says, yo, Micah.
Micah
He's
is
on
on
tap.
YouTube. He's throwing me off, man. I'm on the. Yeah, we're good. Okay. Maybe. Yeah, we're there. We're so money we don't even know it. All right. Yes, we're gonna talk about
Okay.
Anchor. Sorry, we're figuring this out together. Um, Jay leaves. It's like I forget what I'm doing each week, and there's a new problem. So
Dad goes
how's
out of
everybody
town.
doing? How's everybody doing? Welcome back to Hops News, your favorite place for beer and beer culture news and all of the news things that have to do with the beer industry. I am drinking Rule 4080 from Weathered Souls Brewing. By extension, a rule reminding not to trust anybody whose actions in a particular situation are driven by the urge to make money. It is a 5.2% ABV hazy IPA made with Citra. And today, like Lauren said, we're talking Anchor Brewing. Like, there's a fight to save Anchor Brewery. If you don't know, it's America's oldest brewery, man. Like, they're shutting it down. Unfortunately, as beer times are tough.
Yeah, they advertise themselves as America's oldest craft brewery, but Yingling's technically older and still somewhat considered craft. So I don't know the specifics on that one, but
That's true too.
I don't. But they do have it on their website that they are America's oldest craft brewery. So my beer. So you were drinking money beer because we're so money we don't know we're money. I'm drinking
Yes.
a Tactical Brewing West Coast IPA with no haze, with Citra, HS Grove, and Cashmere Lupomax hops at 7%.
All
So
right.
I mean, no one's ever shocked I'm drinking Tactical. It's called Hop Cult.
It's either that or
It's a
Calusa.
nice, crisp West Coast. Yeah, or Tripping Animals. Those are my three go-tos. Tactical,
That's
Calusa, and
true.
Tripping.
That's true.
So I was gonna get some Anchor. I checked my local ABCs, my local grocery stores, and Total Wine, and they were all completely out of it. If I had driven like down towards Disney, the Total Wine over there had it, or by Universal. But I was like, that's
Oh,
an
Universal, where
hour
those
round
peasants
trip.
go.
That's not what I meant. It would be an hour round trip just to buy the beer. But um, yeah, I think I'm more sad about the Christmas beer than anything.
Yeah. I haven't
But
had Anchor in a long time, but their Christmas beer is a staple. And a lot of people are sad about it, but it's also like you're sad about it, but when's the last time you actually drank Anchor Brewing?
But Anchor is one that I wouldn't say no to. Like if it were at like, let's say you're out to dinner with, parents or whatever, and you end up at like Ale House, I would drink an Anchor on draft if that was one of the options. Like when the options are limited and that's a bigger one, I would get that. But the thing is, when they sold to Sapporo, all of a
Mm,
sudden their beer became harder to find. Like I had to
which
like
is weird.
find their Christmas beer this year. It wasn't just at Target or Publix like it normally is. I had the
Do you
same thing
think
with New Belgium.
do you think that's because like they got bought out and so these companies are kind of hoping that they end up having to sell off and close, or what do you think that reason is?
I don't really know. I think some of it might just not be not knowing the demographic well enough, maybe, or not realizing, how important the Christmas sale is to a lot of people. Because, like, when they did the rebranding a couple years ago, I thought that was terrible.
Yeah.
And it was, one of the things I love about this brewery is its history. Like, I did the tour back in 2017, and it was so cool because there aren't many breweries in the States where you can get a historical beer
Yeah, it's
tour.
going to history school or, a history class essentially, but You also get to drink some
Yeah.
beers and see some things like that. Because, yeah, it's been a brewery since 1896. That's unheard
Yeah.
of.
Yeah, you got beer history in there, you got gold rush history in there, so you got some American history and just all of it. But yeah, I have a little beer school. I can go into that and then we can
Hit
go over some of the.
us.
Oh, it's just me on there. Okay. So Anchor Brewing was born in 1896, like we said, after the owners bought it from a brewer who had been there for 25 years. The demand for beer in this area was directly related to the gold rush and making enough beer to serve everyone who had traveled west. So Anchor had a lot of setbacks in the early 1900s. One of the owners suddenly died, and then an earthquake destroyed the brewery via fire. And then the other owner was killed in the most San Francisco way possible. And they actually say this on the tour that he was killed in the most San Francisco way possible by a streetcar, also known as a trolley cart.
Yikes.
Then Prohibition hit. Yeah, that would be a horrible way to go. And then, of course, for the next century, that's on the tour of your brewery that you owned. During Prohibition, there is no record of what Anchor did. They're my favorite Prohibition brewery that survived story because nobody knows what they did. And then magically, the day Prohibition ended, they had beer ready to pour, even though you weren't supposed to be brewing it until Prohibition had ended.
You don't know. You don't understand, okay? The beer just magically brewed itself.
It was immaculate fermentation. Then, which is true, that does happen. You put spoiled fruit out there and it turns to wine. So who
That's
knows?
true. That is true.
Then in 1944, the brewery burned down again, but was quickly reopened elsewhere. Sadly, though, because Americans were suddenly obsessed with very light, crappy macro beers at this time, the sales weren't doing so hot. So they closed and then someone else reopened it. Sadly, that someone else didn't seem to do a great job with brewing the beer. So they decided
They
to
burned
sell
down
to
too.
just their wallet. Then enter Fritz Maytag. In 1965, Anchor was going bankrupt. Sound familiar? That's kind of what they're doing now. So Fritz Maytag, yes, as in the washing machine Maytag, hence the ability to buy a brewery, stepped in and bought a controlling share of Anchor for $5,000. By 1968, he owned the whole thing and was learning how to brew properly, and he then invested in new equipment and refined the steam beer recipe. So what's steam beer? Do you know what steam beer is?
I don't. What is steam beer?
So, steam beer was actually one of the few styles of beer created in America. We don't get much in that regard. And was a result of everybody showing up during the gold rush and the beer needing to be made quick. And obviously, like German lagers were very popular then and they don't ferment very quick. So, since they couldn't meet the demand for all of the lager that everybody wanted with a quick turnaround, they decided to create steam beer. So, they used lager malt most of the time, but if they fermented it at ale temperatures, which are generally warmer than lager fermenting temperatures. Then the wort was left to ferment in wide, shallow, clarifying tanks and then packaged
Mm.
immediately without conditioning it. And this all took less than a week. So, as far as the name Steam Bear, there's a couple theories on where it got the name. One is the rooftop cool ships that were used to make the beer. The beer would steam as it was cooled. And then another theory is that the actual contents in the beer made it have so much pressure or steam in the packaging.
Oh.
Yes. Refrigeration set the style back a little bit, but Anchor Brewing kept it alive thanks to Fritz Maytag. And in fact, in 1981, Maytag
Look,
trademarked steam
that
beer.
son of a gun. He brought us the washing machine and some pretty good beer and methods of brewing. That's crazy.
I think he was just a family beneficiary of the washing machine. But
Ah.
if other breweries want to make steam beer, they have to call it California Common. So California Common and steam beer are the same thing.
Mm.
So back to the Anchor timeline. In 1972, Anchor actually made the first modern porter in the States post-Prohibition, and it was called Anchor Porter and is still brewed today and hopefully continues to still be brewed today. Side note, Fritz Maytag actually put Cascade hops in Anchor's Liberty Ale 5 years before Sierra
I hope
Nevada
you're all
used
drinking
Cascade.
every time she says the word Maytag.
The washing machine people should pay us. All right, so by 1975, Anchor had begun a quote brewing revolution. That's a quote from their
Ooh.
website. And then in 77, they actually moved to the location they're at now, which is the place that I got to do the tour, which is a really cool facility. In 1977, I just said that. In 93, Maytag was once again ahead of the trends and became the first brewery to start distilling. Then in 2010, he decided to retire and sold Anchor to Keith Greger and Tony Foglio. Then in 2017, it was sold to Sapporo. A
This
couple
guy
years
was
later,
around
they
a
changed
long time.
the
Holy
labels.
smokes.
Was around a long
Mr.
time. Yeah, he stayed in the
Maytag.
game for a while.
Wow.
And then a few weeks ago, we got the announcement that their iconic Christmas beer will be no more and distribution will remain in California, followed by the announcement that they are closing. But since the announcement that they were closing, we've seen many other things occur. So, a shout out to where I got my info was basically from the Anchor website and from the Beer Bible by Jeff Allworth. So, I like to credit
That's
those
pretty
where I
cool.
got the info.
Oh, that's very true. It's important to cite your sources, folks, because we got to learn from somewhere. They're just teaching us. They just don't know it yet. So let's kind of talk about what's happening now. The public tap is open until July 31st, which is in San Francisco. They state that they're closing on their website, and thank you, everybody. So, like, they've been around forever, man. Go get your Anchor beer one last time. Again, I think my biggest thing is a lot of people are bummed out, but also, like, when's the last time you had their beer, like, but whatever, neither here nor there, right? It sucks to see a staple in the game, especially around Christmas time or what have you, closing down. And then yesterday, VinePair tweeted that the Anchor Brewing union workers wanted to actually buy the brewery and run it as a co-op. So there might be hope yet. A week ago, Narragansett also started a petition to save Anchor. Narragansett sounds familiar because they are based out of New England, and you might know them from the movie Jaws, right?
Gonna
Pretty,
crush it
pretty
like Quint.
Oh, I've crushed so many Narragansetts outside the Bruin Stadium. Oh God, so many poor unsuspecting Narragansetts were crushed, and I will back anything that brewery does. Number one, and then there's also a hashtag going around which says hashtag Save Anchor Brewing. So what can we do? You can share the hashtag on social media. That's something you can do. You can sign the petition by Narragansett, or I don't know, support the union workers. If I don't know how they're going to raise funds or what their plan is there necessarily, but I
Yeah.
I would like to help out. There's so much change happening right now in America.
Mm-hmm.
So support where you can, support who you can. That's why it's important to support your local breweries. And then, if you like the bigger breweries, support them too, because nobody is safe from what's happening in the craft beer industry right now. It's a very, very dire time. You're going to see a lot of big breweries start to close their doors, sell off. A lot of small breweries at that, because the bubbles kind of burst almost because we have just too many. It's it's,
Yeah.
it's hard to go to them all, I guess.
Well, there was an article, this one right here under, because one of my theories was like, with this being like a historical brewery, like, can they do
Belongs in a
something like,
museum.
yes, can Indy save it? And well, I mean, they haven't been in that location 127 years, but
No,
there's history to it. There's American history. There's beer history to it. Like, I wish they could do something to, like,
save
I
the
don't know.
museum or turn it into maybe a beer museum. Would people go to that? Like
Yeah.
make it a historical site, and then I don't know if there's a market for that kind of thing, but maybe.
Carlsberg Brewery is listed as a museum in Denmark. So when you can buy like a
Oh,
little um thing that, like, you pay like one fee and it gets you into certain museums, and that
yeah,
was on there. So we got in there and we got a beer, and that was like part of the included package when you bought it for all the museums. And yeah, it was listed as a beer museum. I
that's
mean, that
cool.
was more museumish than Anchor, but Anchor was the, I mean, it's the only historical one I've ever done in the States. So
Yeah,
but there were some theories as to why this went wrong. There was an article on
I love a good
one of the
theory.
theories. I guess they had some bad batches in
Tinfoils.
recent years with over oxidized beer and whatnot. And
Uh,
nowadays, with all the competition out there, you have a bad Anchor and you're like, Anchor doesn't taste as good as it used to. I'm just going to buy this.
it ain't like when Pappy used to give it to me when I was 3 years old. That's for sure.
Yeah, we're not beer loyal anymore.
That's true. Well, there's so many different brands. That's the other hard thing, right? Is like back in the 90s, even we'll go there, or even in the early 2000s, is you didn't have this kind of market. Uh, it was pretty much your gonna drink Millers, your Anchors, your whatever, what have you, whatever brewery or beer you were buying. You weren't buying high end stuff. You weren't getting high end stuff. There wasn't a need for it at this time. And now the craft beer boom, you can go to your city block and there's probably four breweries. Like, I'm about to have this problem in my little town of like 4,000 people or whatever it is. The fact that now there is a brewery, but right across from that, there's a craft beer bar opening up called the Golden Tap. So it's like, I'm interested to see that market because I want to support both. But then you have so many choices. It's like, okay, how do I responsibly, or how do I really support all these places? You kind of start to pick your favorites. And so the other one's not necessarily. And then down the rabbit hole a little bit
Yeah.
more, in order to survive as a brewery, you need to have another model, which is why you see a lot of breweries going into things like spirits. Spirits are a big avenue. Spirits, wines. So like New Realm is doing spirits. And I mean, Anchor kind of was a distillery, but I mean, you see just a lot of breweries doing
I didn't know that
wines.
until
Yeah,
today.
you got to do something else. You got to make it a restaurant. You got to start distilling. You got to do some wine. You got to have events. It's hard out there. It really is, and
Well,
everything's not cheap.
and yeah, and San Francisco is very expensive. So that was another one of the things they said. But you also had, new ownership that may not have really understood this
Oh
kind of
yeah,
niche market area. And Stone, there was I just read an article that, Sapporo bought Stone too recently, and they're going to start brewing Sapporo at Stone Brewing. So I don't know how much of the brewing they were doing for Sapporo and how much was for Anchor too. I don't know if that played a factor.
right. I mean, isn't
Yeah.
Sapporo Japanese?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I thought so. Which, yeah, you're right. They might not have known what the American market really is doing, because I don't know what the beer market's like in Japan right now. So
Well, and also, yeah, like you said, a lot of people, their theory is just oversaturation of the market. But I mean, to see this brewery have survived so many actual tragedies, survive
world
prohibition.
wars, even, man.
Yeah. And I mean, for years, 99.9% of the population was just drinking macro beers. That is a
Yeah.
statistic I made up just now. But it sounds true.
Listen, if you say anything with enough conviction, it's the truth.
It's not a lie if you believe it. George Costanza taught me that. But yeah, no, the Christmas, it's one of the beers I always kind of go to, and there was a special thing, like they had the same artist for like every year for like 40 plus years except for like 1 year, and the guy even like did some ahead of time for future things when he was like going to retire.
Right.
And yeah, that's just, oh my god, imagine if they did keep the beer and then they had their ugly new labels on it and not the beautiful Christmas furs we've
It's
gotten over the last year.
hideous.
Take it back, I don't
But
want it.
we've seen what happens when something as like a beer recipe changes, let alone a label changes. Yeah, dude, it's wild out there. Let's go into some random beer news real quick. How about this? The U.S. alcohol delivery platform delivers condoms and craft beer. Look at that. Practice staying at home drinking while you also practice safe other measures. The US based online platform alcohol delivery service called Saucy now has its customers covered,
Okay.
adding condom delivery to its growing roster of stay at home entertainment options. How does somebody say with a straight face? Will come
Oh, do you
before
want me
you
to say
do is the colorful name of the promotion for the launch
and
of
they
Saucy's.
spelled it the way a 12-year-old boy would spell
Of
it.
course, yes. Will come before you do. It's Saucy's new sex-focused product category, which includes an array of sexual health and wellness products, according to the Drinks business. Saucy users can now order condoms, lube, male enhancement pills to their homes alongside alcohol deliveries. This. I was looking at our viewership. A lot of viewers dropped off when we started.
Oh no!
We lost it much, so they just like dropped off as we started talking about alcohol and. They're like,
You're like,
not
oh,
in my,
kids
not
are
in
around.
my
I gotta go.
America. Well, guess what? Look,
Oh
kids are
man,
expensive. Okay, we can barely afford to get
yeah,
groceries and
you
pay a
should order
mortgage.
condoms.
You gotta use. You gotta be smart, man. Smart. Be smart. I'm watching you. Be smart. Anyways, a brewery leak turns seawater blood red in Japan. Speaking of Sapporo, it's not Sapporo, but visitors to a beach resort city on the island of Okinawa, which is Japan's fifth largest island and destination, renowned for its crystal clear waters. I actually have a couple friends there right now. Were shocked to discover the sea had turned blood red when they awoke June 27th. Thanks to a local brewery leak, we believe it was caused by the leakage of a propylene glycol, a food additive listed in enforcement regulations of the Food Sanitation Act. It's contained in cooling water used to cool our factory facilities, which is Orion Breweries. They stated this. The leaked cooling water, flowed into a river through a rain gutter, causing the sea to turn red. No, folks, it wasn't Moses. It was just some, propylene glycol. And Orion Breweries since apologized. According to the brewery, it had been plugged by 9:30 Tuesday morning. However, a spokesperson for the Japanese Coast Guard told CNN that the seawater near the brewery was still red as of Wednesday morning. Orion apologized for causing inconvenience and enormous trouble and worry, and added that it has launched an investigation into the incident and was working with authorities to take countermeasures. Yeah.
And those two articles came from AmericaCraftBeer.com.
Huh. Well, what other news you got before we wrap it on up?
So, what do you think the most popular beer in America is?
Oh, well, it's not Bud Light anymore, so Coors Light.
It's Guinness.
Wow.
So, this market research wasn't done on a large group of people, but market research from YouGov surveyed over 1,400 Americans between April and June to find out how aware they were of 75 different brands of beer and asked them how favorably they rated each one. And Guinness won overall. So, I don't know exactly which beers were
Wow.
on there, but a lot of people just love Guinness. And it's
It's
something
true.
that, like,
It's very
it's
popular.
not a trend. Yeah, and it's always been popular, and I think it always will be
It's always
popular.
going to be popular.
So yeah, I thought that was cool. Nice little
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I didn't know
happy
that.
ending
Ah, those dang
to the
Irish.
sad. Yeah, they know how to make beer.
Yeah. Well,
And one day I'll have one in Ireland.
I'm just not a big fan. Yeah, one day. God, I will. I will love it then. One day I can have it there. Otherwise, I'm not too worried about it. And one last bit of news. Recent research from Brixton Brewery has revealed that almost 1 in 4 craft beer drinkers are drawn to craft beer that has a closer relationship to where it's brewed and a story behind it. Yeah, duh. I mean, that's a no-brainer, right? I feel like it
It's
is. Am
true.
I wrong? I don't know.
Well, I think back in the day, like when you were drinking Bud Light or drinking macro beers, you think like, I wish my beer would tell me
I
a
want that
story.
Clydesdale to step on me.
Yeah, you're just like, I'm just gonna get a 12 pack. You weren't like, I want to hear about the origin of this brewery. I would like
Yeah.
to know the
I would like
brewer's
to go tour this.
backstory.
Ho hum, let me sip on my Bud lattes.
I want to know what kind of hops you use. Why did you choose this name? I love hearing
Right.
the stories behind some of the names.
Oh, I do too, for sure. That's true. Yeah.
So
Well, now there's more connection. We're connected, especially when you have
we
breweries
have
and
evolved,
communities, man. But yeah,
which is what they were like before Prohibition. You build your
that's true.
community around the brewery.
That's true. Now I know it was a quick, brief episode. We had some issues at the beginning. We're trying to get back into the habit of
Shockingly.
things, folks. The more we do this, the more it's gonna get smoother again. Listen, you stop doing some things for a little while, so we got this. We're turning it around. Be on the
You don't
lookout
use it, you
because we might be doing a Hop Barons giveaway here soon. And if you don't know, Hop Barons is delicious barbecue rubs mixed with some hops in them. You can actually go to the website, use promo code Hops News. You get basically free shipping, or 25% off or whatever it is. 10% maybe. I might be lying to you. I don't know. All I know, use that promo code Hops News. We might be doing a giveaway soon, and so stay on the lookout for that. Check us out over on Hops Geek News while we're at it, where we do all sorts of things. We talk comic books, movies, TV shows. We feature a beer of the week. Next week's episode is going to be Jaws 2 with our friend, our good bud Charlie. And we just did a comic book review episode. And on our Patreon account, if you want to subscribe, patreon.com/HopsGeekNews, we are just support the show so we can go to Comic Cons. And then also we give back to you. So go check us out, do all that good stuff. Subscribe if you haven't. Hops News on any platforms. And until next week,